Ladies and gentlemen in this room and those of you joining us online, welcome to the launch of the Australian Circular Economy Hub, or the ACE Hub as we like to call it, live from the Yallamundi Rooms at the beautiful Sydney Opera House. My name is Magdalena Rose and I am your Master of Ceremonies for today's event. Now, before we get underway, I'd like to invite Auntie Ann Weldon to the stage to offer us a welcome to country.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning, Mary. I stand before you this morning on the land of the mighty Eora Nation, and I am a Wiradjuri Koori Balan. I am a member of Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council, who are the cultural authority and custodian of this particular part of Eora country, under the New South Wales Aboriginal Land Rights Act. And it is important to acknowledge this country's rich, first and original story. I would like to pay my respects to elders past, present, of all Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal that are here today, and express my gratitude for the sacrifices that have been made by elders to create a better quality of life for all peoples in our country. It is indeed a humble privilege to provide a welcome to country. For me, it is a profound honour and a luxury of time that has been given by you, and time given by many warriors that started the traditions for everyone. And a welcome isn't just words, it's a reflection of where we are. Not this modern day structure, but the continuous link of life, lesson, purpose and nurturing supplies. And the boundaries of traditional owners are not defined by the hand or a pen, but through the natural landscape of our incredible country. And the Eora Nation country spans from the Hawkesbury River to the north, the Nepean to the west, and the Georges River to the south. So with the permission and on behalf of Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council and our members, I'll welcome everybody to the land of the mighty Eora Nation and Gadigal people. And I acknowledge the Gadigal peoples, whose spirits and ancestors will always remain within their land, our Mother Earth. And whenever you travel across this incredible continent of ours, you are travelling or entering the lands of a nation, a tribe and a clan, which have existed and belong to these lands that stretches far beyond 60,000 years. And First Nations of this land, we are the most diverse, unique and sustainable people on the planet. We are the oldest living culture of the world, and it is important to acknowledge this country's rich first and original history. So let me pay homage to the many warriors that created pathways for all of us, the ones recognised and the ones that we have never heard of. Our journeys and milestones will only be realised if we can see, if we can feel, and if we can be a positive difference put into real action. But we must commit to making our world, our society inclusive, breaking through barriers and not creating them. For all of us together can bring about positive changes to multiple generations, starting with the healings of past generations, and by declaring what should have not taken place to our present generations, giving them hope. For our creators have shown a way of creating a better future for the next generations for everyone in our country, and sadly the lessons have been learnt at our expense and at our devastation should and must be acknowledged, but to listen, learn and come together to heal and to prevent heartaches from ever happening again. So as you connect, learn and share today, tomorrow and beyond, don't live regretting what should have been done, but create the legacy of what must be done. For our future is only as good as our history, and we need to reflect upon the footsteps that we are all leaving to know where we are heading, shaping a world that we can be proud of, and the truth needs to be told, and it must be heard if we are to walk together. So join me by learning from the ancient and living teachings of these lands' first peoples, and you can all draw upon my people's spirit as we walk together. Please, please walk beside us, do not walk ahead of us, so that we can all certainly go forward together to protect this incredible country of ours. I mean, we've got a responsibility to make sure that we maintain and look after our lands, our country. I want to thank Planet Ark for inviting me. I think you're an incredible organisation. I wish you every success, and you just keep on doing what you're doing, yeah? And as I was saying, you just watch these young ones. Not too long down the road where they're going to be leading this country, so I reckon they'll shake it, yeah? and wake some idiots up. But thank you very, very much. May my people spirit walk and guide all of us as we continue on our journey together, and let that journey be one where we can and will continue to make our country the best in the world. Once again, welcome to the land of the mighty Eora Nation. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much, Auntie Ann Weldon, for that generous, generous welcome. And I also want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and to pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. And I would also like to encourage those watching online around Australia to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which they are on. I would also like to welcome our distinguished guests, the Honourable Sussan Ley, Minister for the Environment, the Right Honourable the Lord Mayor of Sydney, Clover Moore, and Consul General, Head of Economic Affairs, Trade and Investment, Frank van Berniggen. Finally, welcome to all of you in the room and the more than 1,000 people who are with us online. Our audience includes people from across the country and overseas. Now, as we proceed throughout the morning, we'll be posting on screen some questions for you, and we'd love you to feed in your responses. For those in the room, you can use the QR code on the screen now, or go to slido.com and use the code ACEHUB. For those online, it's going to appear on the right-hand side of your screen. But due to a short delay on the live stream, your question will appear before you hear me ask it. So the first question is, what is the one word that you would use to describe the circular economy? Fire away. Now, as the answers are coming in, this morning's launch is the power of collaboration and the need for change. That is our message. It is the culmination of an enormous effort of collaboration, both within Planet Ark, but also with the wider circular economy community, who have overwhelmed the Planet Ark team with their willingness to help create this meeting place for all things circular in Australia. And it's wonderful to see that the main word that is being highlighted at this stage in our word cloud is sustainability. It is such an important part of the circular economy. Collaboration, of course, which is essential. And in fact, we do require a monumental effort of collaboration, a redesign in our thinking and a redesign of our systems to make the circular economy a possibility. And we'll be hearing from an amazing panel very, very shortly, which will further give us some insights into the circular economy and its transition in Australia. Now, Planet Ark would like to thank their funding partner, the Australian Government, and founding sponsors Bingo Industries, KeepCup and Planet Ark Power for providing the funding and valuable support to make AceHub possible. In the room and online, we have some of Australia's most influential and inspiring leaders critical to the successful transition to a circular economy. All levels of government are being represented from council to state and federal, including our special guest, Environment Minister Sussan Ley, who will officially launch the AceHub today. Also in attendance are executives and senior representatives from all levels of major industries, alongside leaders from peak industry bodies, academia, and the not-for-profit sector. Now, the choice of this magnificent building as the launchpad for the AceHub was an obvious one. Apart from its iconic status architecturally and its unparalleled setting, the Sydney Opera House is also a case study in circularity. In 2018, the Sydney Opera House was certified carbon neutral by the Climate Active standard, of which Planet Ark is also a proud member. It achieved a 5-star Green Star rating from the Green Council of New South Wales. A 5-star rating is equivalent to the Australian Excellence in Sustainability for Building Performance. The Opera House was the first World Heritage listed site and performance venue in the world to achieve both goals. The Opera House invests its annual $2.4 million electricity spend into wind and solar projects based in New South Wales to support the transition to renewable energy, which underpins the move to a circular economy. Over 80% of waste from this site is diverted from landfill through recycling. Food waste from restaurants, performances and functions is converted into fertiliser and energy. And to protect the surrounding marine environment from plastic waste, the Opera House has already removed plastic straws, plastic bags and items like balloons, and is working on a strategy to increase reusable drinkware on site. Now, in an effort to make our event as waste-free as possible, KeepCup have kindly provided us with reusable cups, and I can see many of you have been using those already. So please do take those home. This is your Oprah moment. Make the most of it. And please make sure you grab it at the end if you haven't already. Now, most people are surprised to learn that there is actually an artificial reef installed along the eastern sea wall. This is a research project in partnership with the University of Technology in Sydney to bring back fish diversity to providing habitat along the seawall. The Opera House was one of the first arts institutions to strategically commit to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals to address some of the most pressing issues of our time, including poverty, inequality, climate, education and justice. By its 50th anniversary in 2023, the Opera House will become carbon and climate positive, and it will achieve a 6-star Green Star rating, equivalent to global leadership in sustainability. The ACE Hub already houses a wealth of other inspiring stories of circular transition, and more will be added in the future. So we encourage you to check it out and subscribe. But for now, it gives me great pleasure to invite to the stage Planet Arc's CEO, Paul Klemenko.
Well, this feels very weird. I'm not seeing a whole bunch of people on a screen. So welcome, everyone. And I want to thank Auntie Ann. Is Auntie Ann still here? I think she's gone. I just want to thank her for a gracious welcome, because I really do believe that we've got a lot to learn from the Indigenous cultures around the world whose cultures are based on circularity. And if you think of techniques like fire stick farming, that's a really good example of that process happening, where you're regenerating the land by cold, low temperature burning. So on behalf of Planet Arc, I want to thank you all for attending our latest and greatest initiative, the Circular Economy Hub, the Australian Circular Economy Hub. I should use the full term, because as like anything in Australia, we abbreviate it. We keep getting shorter and shorter. We've gone to the ACE Hub, so I'm probably going to call it the ACE Hub most of the time now. So as Magda mentioned, we've got over 1,100 people joining us for this event. And looking back on our 28 history, I think this is probably the most important thing we've done during that time. And we're very proud to share it. As Magda mentioned, today's theme is the power of collaboration and the need for change. And I'd like to focus on the need for change first. Make sure this works. Yep. Make sure that works. Good to see technology working. So our universe and planet is based on cyclic systems which contain no such thing as waste. So why do our societies have landfills and ocean plastic dumps? Makes no sense, does it? And basically it's a system design failure. We've designed a system which is not cyclic and circular. So we're acting as if we've got unlimited resources and as if we've got an unlimited right to pollute, neither of which is true, obviously. So we need a major system redesign. And I had a big aha moment. I was fortunate enough to have a 5-week study tour in Europe last year. And part of that, I went to Helsinki for the World Circular Economy Forum. And it was the first morning. I'm walking through this giant hall called the Finlandia Hall. It's their equivalent to the Opera House. And I see this sign. And as I get closer and closer to it, I actually get to pick it up. I can read it. And it says, helping create a carbon neutral and circular economy. And I'm busy trying to get to my first session. I'm trying to find there's 6 different places, but that sign just stuck in my head for the rest of the day. And it all became clear to me in the after-dinner drinks, where after a bit of alcohol, I was actually able to process that information. And so what I realised, and I'm testing this every day with my giant list of environmental problems and whether they'll be solved if we have a carbon neutral circular economy. And so far they've all been solved or mostly solved by us achieving that objective. And when we think of sustainability, so many times we talk about our targets, objectives. We want to become more sustainable. We want to have less impact. But I think these are the end goals we should be aiming for: carbon neutrality and a fully circular economy. And there was an interesting report that I also discovered at that event, put out by this Finnish think tank Citra, along with a whole range of collaborators. And they pointed out that though moving to renewables would solve a lot of the climate problem, it would not be the entire solution. It was roughly half from memory. And the other half would come from us adopting circularity within our economy. And it's really well worth reading that report. Oops, went too far. So I believe there's no coincidence that there's a capital C in circular and a capital C in collaboration. If there's one element that I think is absolutely vital, the most important element, it is that collaboration. And that's why we've launched the Australian Circular Economy Hub, for that very reason. Having a national hub which can not only facilitate collaboration within the country, but importantly, internationally. And I'd like to acknowledge Frank and Di from the Dutch embassy, because they helped arrange a relationship with the Holland Circular Hotspot, which is their national hub, and that has been phenomenal for us. What we've learned through being able to learn from the best, people who have already done it, is amazing. But we've got many other collaborators and people that have helped us on this journey to this point. The Australian government, for basically, and I want to thank Sussan and the department for taking a very fledgling idea. I have to admit, I pitched it it was literally an elevator pitch with one of your bureaucrats, and she said, "That's an interesting idea." Ilse Kiesling was the lady's name. "You should write something about that and send it to us," which I did, and the rest is history. Bingo Industries for being a long-term partner of Planet Ark, and for having embraced the circular economy principles within their DNA, operational DNA now, and also for sponsoring our hub. I've got KeepCup, who have pioneered reusability in Australia, and are also our first corporate sponsor. So a big shout out to Abigail. I know she's on the panel later on. Planet Ark Power, they funded the original research that allowed us to take that pitch from that I put to Ilse Kiesling into reality by allowing us to do a lot of research in terms of circular economy thinking. And they're also pioneering creating urban solar power stations in Australia. And I'd like to acknowledge John Ruddock, one of the directors from Planet Ark Power here. The project that they're working on is with Ikea, and Jan is in the room somewhere. Yes, and on that side. And they're working together to create urban solar power stations, with the first one being in Adelaide. Edge Environment for being our first technical supporter, and particularly Jenny. Is Jenny here? Jenny and Jonas, I think. Yep. Thank you for putting your hands up, because it is very hard when you've got a spit out room. They've really helped us with our strategic plan. So I want to thank you, Jenny and Jonas, for that work. And we're looking to work to do much more with you. ABCO, our collaboration partners on the Australasian Recycling Label, which has been a roaring success, I think you'd all agree. They've also helped us with the development of the hub. Circular Economy Victoria, Sean, thank you for making the trip. You must have got the first plane. I think you did. First plane for Victoria for a while. So Sean and Circular Economy Victoria are leading the charge there, but they're also being our beta testers for this amazing collaboration platform that we're hoping to launch next year. Circular Economy Perth, they're all still asleep over there, but Dylan and Andy from Alonic I'll be doing a satellite event later this week with them. We've got Cyro, Dr. Heinz Schandl is in the room. Thank you. And they're helping us with support for their metrics working group, and I'll be making an announcement very shortly about that, so I won't spoil that for anyone. Deakin University for being our first academic partner, and for their work on circular economy manufacturing research. The Holland Circular Hotspot, I know they'll be watching it probably on delay over there, but Frank and his team have really helped us so much, and we're pleased to have their chair, Dr. Jacqueline Cramer, give us a keynote address a little bit later. And then New South Wales Circular, I can see you, Lisa. Lisa and the team there have been very supportive. They're leading the charge in New South Wales, and they're also giving us circular economy expertise I think it's Australia's first circular economist, expertise for our working group. So this is a huge enterprise, and many people are wondering how this is all going to work. So we've started visualising it. We're very visual at Planet Arc. So we obviously have many independent clusters of work happening in Australia. But what we're aiming to do with the hub is to use the network effect of knowledge sharing. We'll go faster together by collaborating and avoid reinventing wheels. And as we know, it's crucial because we have no time to waste. So what are we launching today? We're launching our ACE Hub platform, which is live now. It has a whole range of case studies. I think we've got about 20 case studies live and many more in development. And I'm going to give you an example of one shortly. We've also got our knowledge hub. So it's a curated knowledge hub. We're looking at the best of the reports that are out there to fast track your knowledge base within circular economy thinking. And we've broken it up into industry. So again, it makes it easier. And we're also launching our strategic action plan. And I want to thank everyone that's given us feedback in relation to that earlier this year. And it's got four main pillars: to inspire and amplify, educate and connect, enable action, and support and promote change. So I really would encourage you to have a read of that. And today we're launching our Circularity in Australian Business research report. So that's going to be an annual study, and it's designed to allow us to gauge the temperature in the room in relation to the business community, to see where they're at in terms of interest, implementation, and what other barriers there are. And it's also going to give us a bit of an indication of how successful we are in the ACE Hub progress towards its aims. So I want to give you a very quick overview of one of the case studies and really the importance of knowledge sharing. So this building is literally 5 minutes from here. If you walk up towards the top end of Bridge Street, and I was looking for an example of circular economy architecture, and I found a book called Circular Building 3.0, put out by the Danish EPA. And the first document, the first case study was this case study. And I thought, we used to be across the road. Our previous office was across the road. And I did not know about what they've done at this building. And I'm pretty sure everyone in this room does not know about it. Put your hand up if you do. I do. All right. I know there's always... Clover, it's your council. Come on. That's cheating. Fantastic.
It's absolutely fantastic.
Fantastic. Well, the case study isn't for you, but we're going to get you to put a quote into the case study about what you think of it. So imagine this building is taking... So 50% of the resources it needs for the new structure is actually produced from the old structure. So that's an amazing in itself. It's saving about 7,500 tonnes of CO2 by that process, and it's saving about $130 million in terms of the cost of having a full demolition and a rebuild. So again, the architects there have deeply embedded circular economy design principles into that construction, and we're lucky enough to have that because this is actually the #1 case study in this book that goes around the world, right at our doorstep. And we've got much more planned in the coming months. We're in the process of creating our advisory board, and we're pleased to announce that Dr. Scott Valentine from KPMG has agreed to be the initial chair. Scott, you'll get to see later in the panel session. He's beaming in from Melbourne. Scott has got an amazing passion for circular economy and a knowledge base, so he's going to be a great initial chair, and we'll be announcing further appointments over the coming months. We've also announcing our first two working groups in high priority areas. That's in circular metrics and circular procurement, the two areas that we feel need the most attention to start off with. And I'd like to announce that Dr. Hein Schandl from CSIRO has agreed to be the initial chair of the metrics group. So thank you, Heinz. We're also launching a series of webinars early next year, and we're as I said before, we're beta testing our collaboration platform. So hopefully that'll be available right across the country sometime next year. And we promise you, this is just the beginning of what we've got planned. So I'd like to thank the entire Planet Arc team for including our board. I think we've got 4 board members here today. For their amazing work and support, because this has come from a seed of an idea about 2 years to going through all the processes to today, in what appears to be a very short period of time for us, because normally a lot of our ideas can take 4 to 5 years to come to fruition, and we think that's because of the amount of support we're getting, both externally and internally. And I particularly want to thank our circular economy team. And if the people in the room, if they put their hand up as I say their name: Nell, Louisa, Maddie, Jamie, I know can't be here, Lucy, Liam, Sean, Steve, Rebecca, and Ryan. These people have worked their asses off. That's all I can say over the past 6 months to make this launch happen. So I want to give them. I'd like everyone to give them a warm round of appreciation. So there's much collaboration to be done in the transition to a circular economy. Please join the journey. And there's the website. So I'd like to now welcome Sussan Ley, the Honourable Minister for the Environment, to do the official honours today. Thanks, Susan. I think I've got to leave that there for you.
Thank you very much indeed, Paul. Can I join you in acknowledging Auntie Ann's welcome to country? Pay my respects to First Nations people across Australia and indeed overseas who may be listening to this broadcast. It's worth noting that underneath all this beautiful glass and concrete, it's in the footsteps of your ancestors, Auntie Ann, that we walk today. And as Australia's Environment Minister, I should note my appreciation for what Bruce Pascoe calls in his book Dark Emu, Australian Aboriginals' profound obligation to their land. It's very exciting to be here to launch this circular economy hub, and the words circular economy will be heard many, many times. So my appeal is, and I know that you in this room understand this, we make these words matter. We turn these words from a buzz phrase, maybe even jargon, we turn them into something real and something practical and something tangible for every Australian. The Australian Government's support for the hub through the Environment Restoration Fund is part of the wider commitment that we took to the last election. So it's great to see the initiative up and running. We came into that election with a clear focus on the importance of waste strategies, a focus on reducing the pressure on our environment by reducing the 74 million tonnes of waste we produce each year. That's 2.9 tonnes generated per capita. At the same time, we had a focus on growing jobs by growing our recycling rates and capacity. And I'm proud of the fact that we've not only honoured those commitments, as evidenced by today's launch, but that we've gone much further. We're stepping up to take responsibility for our waste. We're banning problem waste exports, investing in new technologies and infrastructure, and we're viewing waste as an asset. We are in fact driving generational transformation of our recycling capacity and our attitudes to waste. As unprecedented as this is from a Commonwealth perspective, it can only take place with everyone at the table. And the leadership of a trusted organisation such as Planet Ark is critical. Cartridges for Planet Ark is one of Australia's longest running and most successful product stewardship schemes. You've supported the successful rollout of the Australasian recycling label, giving consumers information they need to recycle better. Now, I conducted a social media recycling challenge at Parliament House last sitting, and the ARL was very much in view by my colleagues, some of them who needed their glasses to see it, but appreciated that's what you do. You look at the label and then you know how to dispose correctly of packaging. So if you get a chance to have a look at that on my Facebook feed, it's quite funny. And surprisingly, members of Parliament who you would think would be all over this, they didn't perform so well. I also understand the Planet Ark's Recycling Near You website receives more than 3.7 million visits annually. Well done. It's an impressive figure. The challenge for all of us, of course, is reaching the other 21.2 million Australians and ensuring they've got the information they need. The ACE Hub that we're launching today will be a one-stop shop for governments, business and the community seeking circular economy solutions, education and implementation in Australia. It has the support of Bingo Industries and KeepCup, and I congratulate them for getting behind the program. And I remind everyone of the important role industry will play from the way we design products, the options we create for their reuse, and the ways that we can collect and remanufacture materials at the end of their life. The ACE Hub will provide a national focus on the circular economy. It's also important that we seize opportunities at a local level, and I know, Lord Mayor of Sydney, Clover Moore, you have a particular passion in this area. The cumulative benefit of those national and local efforts is hugely significant in terms of the waste we take out of landfill and in terms of helping our economy at a critical time. Last week, the Australian Academy of Technology and Engineering released an ARC-funded report on a waste-free future. It's been estimated that just a 5% increase in material efficiency in Australia could produce a $24 billion increase in the economy. The circular economy, in short, is very much an economic opportunity. We're joined here today, I understand, by Consul General of the Netherlands, Mr. Frank Boninen. Frank, you are here. Thank you, and I know the Netherlands has set the pace with its commitment to transitioning to a circular economy by 2050. It's a terrific dialogue that has taken place between our two governments on circular procurement. Our Prime Minister said in his address to the UN in August last year, a truly circular economy is not only possible, but it's achievable, and Australia intends to do more. The Recycling and Waste Reduction Act will pass the Senate by the end of this year, and it will create a world first, a nation taking responsibility for its own waste rather than exporting to less regulated economies. This legislation is based on three drivers: taking responsibility for our waste, helping business manage the full life cycle of their products, and realising the economic and community benefits of reprocessing waste in Australia, thereby creating new industries, new products and new jobs. It also leads on to product stewardship, providing clear processes and timelines for products listed for action on the Minister's priority list. Importantly, we've backed our policy agenda with investment. We've named recycling as one of our 6 national manufacturing priorities for a post-COVID economic recovery. We're driving a $1 billion transformation of Australia's waste and recycling industries through unprecedented direct investment, matched by industry, matched by business, matched by people who have that confidence. The $190 million Recycling Modernisation Fund will leverage over $600 million in investment in new infrastructure so we can sort, process and remanufacture our waste onshore and turn it into valuable products right here in Australia. The $20 million Product Stewardship Investment Fund was oversubscribed with 100 applications. To support these schemes, we're establishing a new Centre of Excellence with UTS, who are here today, to mentor and drive best practice. And I know they'll be urging me, and I'll be urging my colleagues around the Cabinet table to continue that valuable financial support from the Australian Government for product stewardship schemes. Earlier this month, we announced the first successful 10 grant recipients representing new and existing schemes. Among them, the Australian Food and Grocery Council's National Plastics Recycling Scheme. I think Sandra might be here from Nestle. Hi, Sandra. And Dairy Australia with their plan to set up a circular economy for silage wrap. From the first National Plastics Summit at the start of the year till today, it's been a busy 12 months and the pace of change will only grow. We will continue to deliver on national waste targets through the National Waste Policy Action Plan, including the development of a digital platform that will provide valuable information for industry to innovate, identify opportunities to transform recycled material into high-value products. On our own procurement, the Australian Government enters on average over 70,000 contracts annually. This presents a great opportunity to change our own practices as we create markets for recycled products and release a new sustainable procurement guide before the end of the year to help our agencies. We'll continue our agenda on tackling plastic waste with the release of the first National Plastics Plan early next year. We'll focus on realising the value of organic and food waste. Our households alone are throwing away 3.1 million tonnes of edible food a year. That's a cost per household of between $2,200 and $3,800. So my challenge is this. In terms of design, are the materials used in the manufacture of a product renewable, recyclable or environmentally benign? In terms of manufacturing, does the process use cleaner production methods and technologies to avoid and/or reduce waste and emissions to air, water and soil? For the product's consumer, is the product supported with information about how to safely dispose of, reuse, repair, refurbish or decommission a product at the end of its first life? These are the starting points for so many of the conversations going forward. We can't keep wasting materials in the ways we have in the past. We can't keep clogging our oceans and our landfills, and we can't just sit on our hands. This is the time to actually implement structural change, to focus on education, to deliver the outcomes we're responsible for. And today's launch is an important step in the process. So it is my absolute pleasure to officially launch the Australian Circular Economy Hub.
Thank you, Minister. And now I'd like to welcome to the stage the Right Honourable, the Lord Mayor of the City of Sydney, Clover Moore.
Good morning, everyone. And it's good to be here with you this morning to launch Australia's Circular Economy Hub. And I'd like to first of all acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation and pay my respects to their elders, both past and present, and also acknowledge the people of the very many nations who live in our city. And I acknowledge the Minister, Sussan Ley, the Consul General of the Netherlands, industry representatives and everyone who is watching nationally and internationally. It's encouraging to see such a good cross-section of thought leaders participating in today's launch, because a successful circular economy has to recognise that everything is connected. And I just want to thank Planet Ark for their work, their terrific work over the years to defend our environment. I've been very pleased to work with you over many years, and indeed the environment and sustainability has been our top priority since I've been Mayor since 2004. And I'm very pleased to tell you, although it doesn't relate directly to this, that that commitment we made of reducing our emissions by 70% by 2030, we will reach in 2024, 6 years early, and our operations are all now run by renewable electricity. So, and I guess I really want to say this in front of the Minister too, you know, you make the commitment, you set the targets, you can do the work, and you can get the outcomes. And I really hope our federal government will start doing that. So a successful economy is good for business, it's good for the environment, and it's good for society. And more importantly, it is necessary transition if we are to meet the challenges of supporting the growing population on our planet with finite resources. This recognition is rapidly gaining ground. It's boosted by the state government, who at last is beginning to step up under Minister Matt Keane, the establishment last year of the New South Wales Circular as an advisory body, and the appointment earlier this month of Dr. Kar-Mi Tang as the Chief Circular Economist. So we're hoping that the New South Wales Government's 20-year waste strategy, due out early next year, will have a strong focus on a circular economy. We know that business is very aware of the need to do this. Planet Ark's research shows that a massive 88% of Australian business leaders see the circular economy as important for their business, and according to research for the New South Wales Circular, it will boost Australia's GDP by $210 million and create 50,000 jobs. And that's the language you need to use if you want governments to take action, isn't it? Because they've failed so far in terms of caring about the environment in Australia. Business leaders are taking a real lead. They are seizing opportunities for the circular economy, and they have now commissioned a study into how members can take their best practice waste management to work to the next level by developing circular economy initiatives. And the city certainly is a supporter of circular economy. Our work is supporting this move. For example, we're encouraging grant applicants to propose circular economy initiatives, and we've incorporated circular economy principles into our procurement guidelines. And we are ready and eager to collaborate with business and with other levels of government to create this economy. We are trialling an on-demand recycling pickup service for tricky items, including clothes, soft plastics, small electrics and expanded polystyrene. This will reduce waste sent to landfill, illegal dumping. It'll expand the items our residents can recycle and reach our source separation target of 35% by 2030. A key challenge in realising this vision is creating a demand for recycled and circular economy products. That's why we're also working with the Southern Sydney Regional Council organisation to create a circular economy for civil works. We trialled a project earlier this year using glass fines as a road base. We do know that the transition will not be straightforward. It requires, firstly, a change of mindset and therefore a regulatory and policy frameworks. It also requires investment and an adaptation of business models and strategies. At its best, the circular economy designs out waste and pollution. It keeps products and materials at their highest value for as long as possible and regenerates natural and social systems. And I think we see that in that AMP building down the road by BVN and 3XN. It's a wonderful development in terms of its sustainability. It's also a wonderful development in terms of its architectural achievement. And we have a policy at the city that our new development will not overshadow our important public spaces. And in this case, the building's actually turned itself so it won't overshadow Macquarie Place. In its essence, the circular economy understands the interconnectedness and builds cycles of continuous regeneration. Paradoxically, this new economy can learn from what we have here in Australia, the world's oldest living culture, as Auntie Ann said. Aboriginal communities understand the relationships between living systems. They transmit knowledge, and they do this over successive generations, and they think in the long term. And this is what we all have to do now, in the 21st century. We all have to think in the long term, because for too long, governments have sought in short-term election cycles, and they've failed us, and they've failed our environment. This can be a wonderful source of inspiration for the Australian Circular Economy Hub and Planet Ark's new program. So I'm very honoured today to be a part of this launch, and again, I thank you for the work you've done in the past, and we at the City look forward to working with you into the future. So thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. In keeping with the times, our keynote address from the chair of the Holland Circular Hotspot, Dr. Jacqueline Cramer, has been pre-recorded from the Netherlands. We thought it might be kinder to do it that way rather than getting her up in the middle of the night. Dr. Cramer is a member of the Amsterdam Economic Board, where she's actively engaged in circular economy initiatives. She's a Professor Emerita of Sustainable Innovation at Utrecht University. From 2007 to 2010, she was the Minister of Housing, Spatial Planning and the Environment in the Netherlands government. Jacqueline has always promoted combining practical sustainability action with theoretical reflections. As a result, she's both a widely published academic as well as active in various international and national advisory boards of governments, industries and not-for-profit organisations. Some of her current roles include Supervisory Board Chair of the Holland Circular Hotspot, Mayor of Cirkelstad, or Circle City, and Supervisory Board Chair of the Plastic Soup Foundation. In recent years, Jacqueline has advised various governments and international organisations on circular economy implementation. As a well-known expert on the subject and sustainability overall, she's a widely sought speaker in the Netherlands and internationally. And we are delighted to have her address us today.
Dear Minister Ley, dear Lord Mayor, Consul General van Beuningen and CEO of Planet Ark, Mr. Klimenko, and all other participants present at the launch of the Australian Circular Economy Hub. Before starting my keynote address, I'd like to thank the Planet Ark team for its major contribution in building bridges between our countries and inviting me to speak. It is a great privilege to contribute to this launch. In the run-up to this event, the Netherlands and Australia have already established a fruitful cooperation in sharing experience in how to put a circular economy into practice. We learned that culturally we have a lot in common and can collaborate fruitfully with business partners and experts of both countries. Although we are suffering worldwide from the COVID-19 crisis, the pursuit of circular economy gives us hope. Striving for a circular economy can help solve the tremendous environmental problems we face. It provides new business opportunities and jobs, and may offer us a way out of the current economic recession. It also triggers innovation and creativity and can make countries less dependent on import of resources which they have not available in their own country. The objective of the Netherlands is to be circular by 2050. As the chairperson of the board of the Dutch Circular Economy Hub, called Holland Circular Hotspot, I'm convinced of the added value of cooperation on circular economy worldwide. We live on one planet and jointly need to reduce our resource consumption. It already requires natural resources from the equivalent of about 1.7 Earths to sustain our current population. If we maintain our present patterns, we need 3 Earths by the year 2050. After resigning from the job as a Minister of Housing, Spatial Planning and the Environment 10 years ago, I have devoted my time to help implement circular economy policies into practice. Based on the experiences gained, I formulated 10 guiding principles to realize the circular economy. And I'm pleased to share the highlights with you in this short presentation. The first 4 guiding principles are important to spark the transition. The transition to circular economy starts with a shared sense of urgency. This transition consists of a great variety of circular initiatives. And in each of those, the participants need to share the urgency to take action. The second principle is that the implementation of circular initiatives occurs in 4 sequential yet cyclic phases, namely phase 1, preparing the circular economy initiative or program, phase 2, building the initiative, phase 3, scaling up successful examples, and 4th phase is that you mainstream the circular economy. And we can't realize that in one goal, so it takes several rounds to reach the far-reaching improvements. So at least it takes 2 decennia to reach the stage of mainstreaming. The third principle is that the task to be performed for circular initiative is roughly the same, but the focus is case-specific. How much work and time it takes to perform the task differs per initiative. For instance, to make plastic circular has another time horizon than, for instance, concrete, or take an example, mattresses. First principle is building a circular economy is a journey with a clear destination but no predetermined path. It is not a project planned from beginning to end. It is a change process in which participants should continuously adapt, learn, and respond to new situations. The next 3 guiding principles focus on understanding the context in which the circular initiative is to take place. The 5th principle is to focus on the most promising innovations. In the case of Australia, it helps to focus on those industrial sectors causing major environmental impact and select frontrunners in these sectors as lead. 6th principle, map the key drivers and preconditions for successful implementation to effectively steer towards the desired circular direction. The Australian Circular Economy Hub can support this endeavour. 7th principle, identify the relevant actors and assess their willingness to join forces. And I group the actors into 3 categories: prime actors, complementary actors, and supportive actors. In this way, one can prioritize those actors that are crucial. The last 3 guiding principles deal with enabling successful implementation. The 8th principle is new circular business models should benefit all network partners, which means that the costs and benefits should be fairly shared among the partners. A recent example is the circular manufacturing partnership between Brink in my country and Integra in Victoria. The 9th principle is transition brokers can accelerate circular initiatives. Because no one can realize a circular initiative alone, intermediaries, as I call them, transition brokers, can help align all relevant stakeholders and therefore accelerate the transition process. An organization like the Australian Circular Economy Hub can act as transition broker. 10th principle is that a transparent division of labor among the relevant actors is indispensable to successfully build a circular initiative. Key actors should feel responsible for the execution of the necessary activities related to their roles and responsibilities. It sounds self-evident, but this last principle is often overlooked. This new form of cooperation in networks I call network governance. It will not replace conventional public governance with which you are familiar, but rather complements it. Network governance is needed to implement circular initiatives in a coalition of partners that are needed to realize their desired results. Thus, it is all about people. It's also about you. Ladies and gentlemen, what I told is just a sneak preview of the experiences Australia and the Netherlands can share. I hope that the launch of the Australian Circular Economy Hub is the confirmation of the fruitful cooperation between our countries, and also of the true belief in joining forces to move to a circular economy. The Netherlands stands ready to welcome Australian businesses of every size to cooperate on the common objective of a circular economy. It is a challenging but very promising endeavor that benefits both the environment, the economy, and our social well-being. Let us invest in a sustainable future. My warm regards to all of you, and thank you for your attention.
Our thanks goes to Jacqueline for her inspiring words, and I'd also like to thank Minister Ley for officially launching the ACE Hub today. Please join me in showing our appreciation. Now, after this event, we're going to share a link for you to download Jacqueline's ebook, How Network Governments Powers the Circular Economy. And we're also going to ask you our second question for this event. So again, please use the details on the screen to join in, and you can select more than one answer. In your current role, what would help you to take action to become more circular? And I'll give you around 30 seconds to respond. Now, in the meantime, I'd also like to thank the Lord Mayor for being with us today. So please join me once again for showing our appreciation. And I'd now like to introduce you to our panel. We've got our panel joining us on stage and also via video link. And they are some of the who's who of the circular economy for thinking and practice in Australia. So firstly, I'd like to invite to the stage Nick Comito, Head of Sustainability at Bingo Industries. Nick is responsible for driving Bingo's sustainability agenda. Prior to joining Bingo, Nick led sustainability functions across a wide range of sectors, including for IAG, Optus Singtel, and Veolia Water. He has been a member of the Australian Business Roundtable for Disaster Resilience and Safer Communities of the United Nations Global Compact Environmental Committee. Thank you for joining us, Nick.
Thanks.
Joining us via video from Queensland is Ashleigh Morris, CEO of Coreo. Ashleigh was recently recognised as a global top 100 corporate social responsibility influential leader. She is a Prime Minister's Scholar, an Australian Asian Emerging Leader, an invitee to the 73rd United Nations General Assembly, and an Ellen MacArthur Foundation Circular Economy Champion, a title granted to only a handful of people worldwide. Welcome, Ashleigh. And from Melbourne, Abigail Forsyth, co-founder and managing director of KeepCup. Now, following a successful career as a solicitor at a boutique Melbourne law firm, Abigail and her brother Jamie set up their own chain of cafes across the city. Alarmed by the amount of disposable packaging being wasted, Abigail started her search for a more sustainable and environmentally conscious way to serve food, and then the concept of KeepCup soon became a reality. KeepCup is in business for better, a certified B Corporation, living wage employer, and member of 1% for the Planet, donating at least 1% of global revenue to environmental causes. KeepCup is committed to becoming carbon neutral by 2025. Welcome, Abigail. And Dr. Scott Valentine, Director and Senior Circular Economy Specialist at KPMG, and former Professor and Associate Dean of Sustainability and Urban Planning, RMIT. With over 30 years of diverse international business experience, Scott is now responsible for coordinating circular economy work within the firm and for providing expert support for projects around the circular economy. He has led major research projects in Denmark and Holland with an emphasis on corporate strategy and public policy design and implementation. He represents Standards Australia on international development of an ISO standard for the circular economy, and we are delighted that Scott is now chair of the ACE Hub Advisory Board. Please make him welcome. Also on stage with us today is Jodie Bricout, adjunct senior lecturer undertaking a PhD on high-value circular economy approaches at the University of Adelaide, a founding member of the Victorian Circular Economy Innovation Advisory Committee, and a board member of New South Wales Circular. Jodie has flown in from Adelaide, which was a little bit touch and go, but we're delighted to have Jodie in the room. Jodie is one of Australia's leading circular economy experts with 2 decades' experience working with research and industry in Australia, Dubai and Europe. And the final seat on stage, Jan Gardberg, CEO and Chief Sustainability Officer at Ikea Australia and New Zealand. Jan has been with Ikea since 1983. He brings more than 35 years of experience leading and managing within and across Ikea, from supply, design and range development to distribution and retailing at regional, national and global levels. Jan has lived in many countries before coming to Australia, including 9 years in China and 4 years in Russia. Please make our amazing panellists very welcome. So I'm going to address the first question to each of you on stage and on video link as well. And just so that we don't get confused, I'll mention each panellist's name so you know when it's your turn to answer the question. So the first question is, what does the circular economy mean to your company? I'll start with you, Nick.
Sure. So the circular economy, to Bingo, when we take a look at it as a vertically integrated resource recovery company, we look at it with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation principles, the core principles. So the first principle is obviously taking a look at how we can... I've had in mind, thank you.
That's okay.
Take a look at those principles, the core principles. We want to take a look at how we can keep products and materials in use. Mm-hmm. So that's a really important principle for us. And I think that that's pretty much where Bingo plays. Also, there is regeneration natural systems, and that's obviously a really important one as well. How can we mimic natural systems and become more cyclical within our thinking and actually implementing a circular economy? So for Bingo, as a resource recovery company, we are very focused on making sure that we can keep products and materials in use. Oh, and sorry, it just came to me because you always have a mind blank on stage.
Yes.
But the design principles, so I needed to get this out because this is really important, I think. And I think that design is typically overlooked in this. And when we take a look at design, roughly 80% of environmental impacts can be are actually at the design phase. That can be designed out at the design phase. So it's a really important, critical step, and the one that I overlooked, incidentally. But I think it's one that's well worth making sure that we consider when we're taking a look at that. So those 3 principles are the lenses that we look through at Bingo.
Mm-hmm. And Ashleigh, what does the circular economy mean to your company?
Well, for our company, it's really about supporting organisations to take the circular economy out of theory because, let's be honest, it can feel like a big nebulous concept until it's applied. So for us, it's about facilitating that transition for our major companies here in Australia and our small businesses as well, and then supporting government to understand the barriers that are in the way for business and supporting them to set supportive regulation and policy.
Abigail from KeepCup.
So ours is about KeepCup. It's about inspiring people to reduce and reuse. And for the last decade, we've worked really hard to remove social licence that says it's okay to make waste through the lens of the disposable coffee cup. And because it's highly visible and highly relatable, it's a really wonderful example of the collective impact of individual behaviour change. So as a company that's manufactured over 10 million reusable cups over the last decade, KeepCup is a really great demonstration that circular economy and commercial success are not mutually exclusive.
Scott?
Well, Magdalena, as you know, KPMG works broadly across all sectors, and we work in a very competitive industry. So, overall, our quest is to help our clients to succeed. Otherwise, they won't continue to engage us. And in this dynamic world of ours, success is really achieved by helping our clients to anticipate and respond to forces that will alter their operational environments. So to us, the circular economy represents an evolution of economic development thinking. And when it reaches its most sophisticated levels, it's going to have altered how companies do business. It'll change infrastructure needs. It'll influence how governments collaborate and plan economic development. So needless to say, much of what KPMG does as the circular economy evolves will also require us to change. So organizationally, we feel that we need to be ahead of the curve on this, and that's why the circular economy is so important to our firm.
Jodie?
Hi. Well, I think I used to talk about having different hats, and now I've officially got a portfolio career. So my clients kind of vary, and I like to think about it as my network now. But I co-founded a not-for-profit in Australia, Loop Circular Economy platform 4 years ago to try to really raise awareness of what circular economy was, organising, international conferences in Australia where no one knew what the heck a circular economy was a big challenge, and also training people and getting people across the line. But then I'm now working as well with New South Wales Circular, where I'm a board member, and the newly established Circular Economy Business Innovation Centre in Victoria as well. So really exciting state government agencies and initiatives that it's moving away from, so Loop's all about instigating change to a circular economy, and these initiatives are all about fast-tracking and accelerating, and it's so exciting that we've gotten to that point, so helping them there. At my company Life Cycles, we do life cycle assessment work, so really putting the geeky data and decision-making power and capacity behind the decisions that business leaders and policy developers are taking in this area. And I'm now doing a full-time research, I don't know how that adds up in the portfolio, but I'm doing a PhD really around those higher value uses. So how do we, I think we've got this in terms of waste and getting those materials back into the economy, but how do we keep products running for longer, keep things repairable, support remanufacturing, so how do we keep products and components running longer? And that's all about creating and sharing knowledge. So there's a lot of different areas there.
And Jan, what does the circular economy mean to Ikea?
Yeah, as you maybe know, IKEA has been around for more than 75 years, and I would like to express it in this way, that the transformation that we're on to now within IKEA to go 100% circular by 2030 already, that is such a profound and the most ambitious and challenging agenda we ever have been taking on. And it truly affects the total aspects of our total value chain. It influences the way that we decide how to meet and engage with the customers. It also influences directly what type of solutions and services and products that we are developing. It influences our choices of material and where we source it from and how we source it. It influences our total distribution and supply chain and the setup. And it also influences our decision making on who we need to partner up with from a strategic point of view, to find like-minded companies, striking a partnership also with industry platforms, co-creation with communities and so forth. So yes, are all the things clear? Definitely not. There's a lot of challenges, but we choose to see them as opportunities. And I believe also that there is no other way forward. It's the right moral and responsible way to go 100% circular. It's also enormously good business opportunities, so there's no conflict there.
A question for our companies, so Jan, Nick and Abigail. I'll start with you, Abigail. What sort of activities is your company undertaking to go more circular?
Yeah, I really love what Jacqueline Cramer said earlier, that it's about having a destination with no predetermined path. And I think that's really important to going circular, is that you set a vision. So ours is, that the best way to do it is to elevate enjoyment and quality over speed and convenience, and then thinking about what gets in the way of that goal and what enables the vision you have. Because if you don't do that, then your tactics might quickly be derailed by competing priorities. So for us, it's about product design, the quality, the usability, the lifespan, materials, doing life cycle analysis. Thank you to Edge Environment, who I know are part of the Circular Economy Hub. Education and campaign. So it's about working collaboratively with people, amplifying our voice. So working with Planet Ark, working with 1% for the Planet, working with Plastic Free Foundation, to really amplify what we're doing and lift the bar of the conversation. And then it's about walking our talk as an organisation and making sure that what we're doing is supporting what we're saying. So having, being renewable powered, having solar on the roof, paying a living wage, locally manufacturing and supporting local initiatives, and then being carbon neutral and possibly carbon positive. So it's just a layering of all those things so that everything you do is taking you to this destination you're seeking.
And Nick, what about Bingo Industries? What particular activities are you undertaking to go more circular?
Right, so our organisation already fulfills, I guess, a part of what that whole circularity principle is.
Mm-hmm.
We do recovery across our network, and in New South Wales we recovered 83% of the material that came through our facilities, which is we're really pleased with. We've invested pretty heavily as well in terms of building a brand new materials processing centre, our materials processing centre 2 we call it, and that is effectively going to give us an uplift to roughly 90% plus of being able to recover, but also we're going to broaden the range of materials that we can recover through that facility, which we're really excited about. So being able to really uplift and broaden the materials is really a big step. Also, our Eastern Creek Recycling Ecology Park has a really good opportunity, because as we go through the master plan design of that place, as we sort of understand and we collaborate, there may be opportunities for us to be able to build assets there that would be able to address issues and things that we can actually work with others within this ACE Hub framework. So we're really quite excited about that. And I think finally, but definitely not, and really importantly, is we're working with Planet Ark and with Edge Environment. They're undertaking a Circulab workshop with us. So we're going to start to understand where we are at the moment, how we sit, what can we do to sort of further our innovation aspirations, but then also what else can we do to become a more circular business? And that's part of the evolution of the business.
Jan?
Yeah, I could build on what you said before and start from there, because we have a lot of things to share, but short time. You mentioned before about design. That is one of if anyone that has been putting together an Ikea furniture knows that it's doesn't come ready-made. You have to go with the Allen key, and it's a lot of different parts. But we see that as a great advantage when going forward. So the first fundamental leg that we are doing right now, that is when designing the products from the beginning, like a reversed engineering, thinking about the end of life of the product. So what type of material goes in there, standardization when it comes with fittings and so forth all across. And even now we have introduced fittings that are made out of recycled wood. So it's kind of the wedge dowels where you kind of just snap it on, and then later on when you want to take it apart, you can just bump it a little bit and then it comes apart. So the design phase, as Nick talked about before, is really crucial for us. And since we own the total value chain, the next part into this one is how we source the material. That goes hand in hand when designing the product. So let's take a couch, for example. In the old traditional ways that couches were made, you know, a lot of staples, different type of metals, different type of foams on the back when it comes to the armrest, etc., and so forth. So we kind of rationalized all of these things and looking at how can we get it down to only to being maybe 6 components of materials, 4 components and 3 components, and still finding the quality and then also the durability. But that puts then into focus from where do we source the material and how do we actually then get production close to the renewable and recycled material. And our ambition is that by 2030, all of our products need to be made out of 100% either recyclable or renewed material. So that is a big undertaking for us. We are around 75% now already, so we believe that we will be able to close that by 2030. The third part, it really involves all of you and me, and that is the consumers. As you know, we have more than 400 stores around in the world, and we are now then trying to nudge different type of behavior. So how can we create it hip and cool to go circular? How is the process when customers are coming to our stores? How do we operate it with clean and renewable energy? And what are the services and tools that we can give to you that you can take care of the products as long as possible? And then we also put into place possibilities when you maybe get tired of your solution and your products, that you can kind of pass it on to somebody else. So last year we launched here in Australia the take back service. So if you get sick and tired of your dining table, we will actually purchase it back, and we will make sure that somebody else adopts it and continues to take care of it. The fourth pillar that we're working on, and this is a good example of that is that we have realized that we cannot do this by ourselves. We need to have strategic, strong partnerships. So that is about looking at like-minded companies, government, industry platforms, innovation centers, and how we can kind of cooperate together and to co-develop, including communities and customers. So those are kind of the 4 areas that we are focusing on right now. Try to make it in a nutshell.
Yeah. And as Paul mentioned earlier, Ikea has just signed off on a major battery and solar installation in South Australia with Planet Arc Power. So that's fantastic as well. For those of our panellists on the consulting side, I'll start with you, Ashleigh. What are you doing to help your clients become more circular?
So we've now, as a company, we've delivered over 70 circular economy projects in all key junctures of the economy, from mining to tourism to the built environment through to agriculture. And we've done this alongside some of our major companies in this market, but also multinationals. And what we hear are often 3 key questions. What is the circular economy? What value can it provide to our business? And where do we start? So as a company, what we do is support organisations on that journey to answer those questions, from education right the way through to implementation. And then importantly, and what all my fellow panellists have shared, is that it's about then sharing those outcomes and those case studies, finding partnerships to scale up that transition.
Scott, what about you?
Oh, good question. Well, you know, as you know, KPMG is just a behemoth of a consulting firm. We've got 9,000 employees in Australia, which is great because they never know where you are at one time. But you know, we consult broadly across a number of different areas. Of course, we do economic modeling, which is, I think, key to understanding the circular economy, as Jodie pointed out earlier. One of our first and highest profile programs is called Circular Advantage. And indeed, we're just finishing off the first pilot of this at the end of this month. Basically, it's been an 18-module, 5-month gruel-a-thon with 22 Australian firms that have gone through really deep dives into the circular economy and are coming out the other end with circular economy roadmaps. We've also got a whole bunch of one-on-one engagements with some of the largest firms in Australia, where we are helping them to conceptualize circular economy strategies. And so, you know, I think on the surface, when we talk about the circular economy nowadays, we don't see a lot of it in the press, but there's a lot going on under these still waters. And I'm sure, you know, many of my colleagues that are working in other consultancies would agree that this is really a wonderful time to be involved in this. On the government side, we play an enormous role in engaging with various different government organizations, from the federal level with DAW to right down to, you know, sort of either precincts, LGAs, RDAs, councils. Indeed, the Circular Advantage that I talked about earlier was sponsored by Hume and Kingston cities here in Melbourne. So, you know, there's a lot of interest all around, and we're really excited to be part of this.
And what about yourself, Jodie?
Yeah, so Loop Circular Economy Platform has been a really strange kind of organisation because it's not really a traditional consultant, and you know, our whole aim has been to instigate change. So the first conference that we ran back in 2017, there was a couple of faces in the room that were there, was just incredible, because we were going from people not really talking about the circular economy. Like, Paul, it still would have been pretty weird language for you at that stage. And we managed to get 200 people from all across Australia. We had the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. We managed to get Ashleigh and Janie speaking next to the London Waste and Recycling Board, talking about what they were doing on a street and the Sunshine Close next to the London, talking about their major action plan and exchanging this kind of information. It was wonderful. We had Abigail there on this incredible panel full of Australian innovators in this space, and not just innovators looking at you know, waste. These were people working on blockchain and working on titanium 3D printing and, you know, really hard-hitting, edgy stuff like that. So the kind of connections we've been able to bring, the kind of sophisticated understanding that we've been able to spark across the circular economy has been really meaningful, and we know that there's key policymakers in certain states that, you know, they got switched on and they got this understanding, and that's where some of our policy is coming from now, because these people were so driven by it. And also training, we've trained 200 professionals in Australia to really think about this in a sophisticated way. So it's been really important to kind of upskill and create a sophisticated understanding of circular economy so that we can now have these meaningful conversations about things.
Earlier on, some of our speakers did, including Dr. Jacqueline Cramer, mention some of the challenges associated with the transition towards a circular economy. So, Scott, a question for you. From a sustainable economic development perspective, what parts of the current approach towards the circular economy do you think need more refinement?
Thanks, Magdalena. I think there's two areas that stand out for me in particular. The first one is industry involvement. You know, as is often the case with early stages of the circular economy, and this, by the way, has been true in Europe as well. But here in Australia, the focus has been on recycling, and it's particularly understandable given the waste management crisis that arose 2 years ago with overseas nations starting to boycott recyclable material. But, you know, as we all know, the circular economy is not synonymous with recycling. It's a resource optimization strategy. And under a resource optimization strategy, recycling is actually at the bottom of the pyramid when it comes to desirable activities. So avoidance, reduction, reuse, repairing, and remanufacturing are all more desirable activities. And these are the types of activities that, when implemented by companies, can lead to profitable outcomes whilst reducing ecological footprints. So we need to encourage industry participation, and to do so, we need to do a better job of educating industry leaders and helping industry to shift to this new strategic paradigm. And this, unfortunately suggests, or fortunately, suggests that the circular economy support policy needs to be aligned with industry needs. So we need to have far greater participation in policy setting by industry players. And this isn't just, recycling industry. This is, manufacturers, retailers, service industries, etc. And then the second element, if I can just very briefly, is the adoption of a regenerative lens. Come on, folks, the aim can't be to simply create circles of economic activity. That can't be our life's goal. We embrace the circular economy to benefit, humankind. And this means that, all CE activities need to be designed to enhance our environment and to enhance our communities. So we need to understand what we want to try to achieve before we make it happen in the circular economy.
Thank you, Scott. There are so many questions I still want to ask you guys, but unfortunately we've run out of time, so I'm just going to take the liberty of scrapping what I was going to say. And I just would love each and every one of you, before you leave us, if you can leave those online and in the room with a nugget of gold or a take-home message, or if you have one opportunity more to say something about the circular economy, what could it be? So I'll start with you, Abigail. Sorry, just to put you on the spot.
I really love what Scott says, and I think there's a big intention gap that if we're just circularising without an overall vision to sort of regenerate and restore the natural world of Australia and to preserve biodiversity, natural systems, what the hell's the point? And to employ people and have an inclusive society that, has a living standard that looks after everyone, there's no point. So it's about government setting that vision, and then us all, everything falls under it.
Ashleigh?
I absolutely concur with that statement of let's have a clear vision and then have a conviction to learn by doing it. I think what we could all benefit from in this country is just getting out there and having a crack and learning how to put one foot in front of the other in making a transition towards a circular economy.
Scott?
Yeah, I agree with all those sentiments, and largely, the ACE Hub is going to help to consolidate a lot of this. We need these types of inspirational stories, such as the history and the growth and success of KeepCup, for example. We need to know, what the big industries are doing, such as Ikea, because their stories inspire other corporate leaders to make changes. We need to focus on innovations and, some of the work that Ashleigh's been doing, for example, in Queensland with organizations in inspiring design thinking. This is what makes it fun to get involved in these activities. And at the end of the day, if it's not fun, what are we doing, right? So that's I think that would be my advice to anybody is let's try to tap into some of the passion that can drive us to by far greater innovations.
Thank you, Scott. And the heavens above have just given me an extra few minutes. So I'm going to target, Jodie and Jan, I'm going to target the question a little bit more for you, if you don't mind, especially because of your experience in Europe. When it comes to the circular economy progress in Australia over the last 4 years, how do you think we compare to Europe, and do you think we're making good headway? Jan?
Okay, I came here 4 years ago, quite exact now, and I would say that I have seen tremendous movement here in Australia. I mean, just to be here to share thoughts together with all of you and across in the different medias to talk about circularity and sustainability. That I didn't have a feeling of when I came here just 4 years ago. Of course, living in Finland and brought up in Sweden, being kind of conditioned from the beginning to sort as many waste fractions as possible and so on. So, I had a shock here first when I only confronted with the red bin and the yellow bin and, kind of the commingling and so forth. So I think that when comparing the countries, which you normally shouldn't do, Of course, there have been some advantages maybe with an infrastructure in place from actually seeing waste as a commodity and to be able to kind of also incentivize behaviors that kind of drives towards the vision of zero waste to landfill. But it gives me actually enormous encouragement and hope, and just to be here and to be able to share all of this and the latest developments. And when you just read the news and listen to the radio, go on to the internet, I mean, the agenda is starting getting driven by the many people here in Australia. It's not sitting just with the legislative part. It's us from businesses coming together with NGOs, coming together with communities and people. And I'm a strong believer that we are on a good path now, and it's nothing that's going to stop Australia to be on top of the game and have a pole position in this.
And Jodie?
Fantastic. So just a bit of context. I'm an Adelaide girl, but I moved over to France quite early in my career, and I spent 13 years there. So actually I learnt about, working on materials management and waste management and all these things in France. And I was there when circular economy kind of hit and became a big thing. And I was part of the C100 Governments and Cities Network with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And I developed and ran over $20 million worth of European projects around this. So I was in a wonderful position to really be at the forefront of what all these different countries were doing, and it was really exciting. And I came home for my family. I wanted them to, be able to run around with bare feet. And when I came home, there was two things that really, really shocked me. One was data. I felt like as a practitioner that I'd been asked to do my job with my hands cut off. I was like, oh, of course, we just get that data from there and we analyse that. And everyone's like, no, that data doesn't exist here. So it was really quite shocking for me how far behind we were on that. And I think we've seen extreme, amazing leaps and bounds in that since that time, particularly if you look at packaging and food in Australia. The data and the benchmarking studies are just formidable, what we've achieved in the past 4 years. And that's because the Australian government's come out and set some hard targets. And they've had the courage to set them not quite knowing if they were perfect targets or not. And some of that data is showing that the targets have to be shifted, but having the data in place has really driven all of that development. Having the targets in place has driven the development of the science and the industry engagement that follows a bit. So it's a really important shift that I've seen. The second, which is why I started Loop, was that, in Europe, it was all about collaboration. Like every time you did anything on circular economy, you called your networks and you talked to your partners across the border, and, businesses would go and talk to the local government, and we'd get an academic in. And here it was just, everyone had really great ideas, but they had it in their own little cubicle in their own office. And, for me coming in here, I was like, wow, we've got to break that down and talk to each other about that. So I think we've seen an amazing jump in that collaboration lately as well. So, New South Wales Circular was a big jump in that 18 months ago, and we've seen that just ramping up amazingly now with more collaboration and more meetings. And the Circular Economy Business Innovation Centre in Victoria, I think, is really going to push that amazingly. And of course, the ACE Hub, having the ACE Hub and CBIC launched within the same week, shows that we are starting to at last collaborate in Australia. So it's really exciting to see those developments.
On the note of the ACE Hub, Nick, a question for you. How do you see your company interacting and using the ACE Hub, and what sort of benefits do you see for your company and those in your value chain?
Yeah, look, we're really excited to advocate for the ACE Hub. It's a really exciting opportunity. First of all, I had a chance to look at the strategic pillars for the ACE Hub, and there's a couple that I really sort of resonated with me and that I think that are going to be a bit of a shift for what we're doing here today. The first one is to educate and connect. So that's really important that we're educating, but that we're connecting. And a lot of what you're talking about through collaboration is so important. We need to be able to bring the different stakeholders together within our value chains, outside of our value chains, academics, all the different institutions, NGOs, to be able to actually come together and understand what those problems are. So we think that's really important. What are those problems? How do we need to solve for those problems? And that's through the connection that we'll be able to form there. So that collaboration is absolutely instrumental for us to be able to be successful in this. The second one that I think that really shifts the needle for ACE Hub is the enable action strategic pillar. Now, in the past, well, I've had these conversations many times before. We've seen case studies, we've talked about it, we've had really good conversations, but rarely has it landed with really good action. And I think that strategic pillar, the creation of a marketplace for people to be able to go and direct their procurement activities, is really sort of a change. There's also going to be the potential for us to be able to work together, as I say, to look at those issues, what are the resolutions for those issues, and then what do we need to do to get this done, and then get it done. So that's the action part that I'm really excited about with ACE Hub, and that's how I see it landing really well.
A question for Ashleigh and Abigail, just very quickly. How do you feel about the current trajectory of the circular economy in Australia? Are you optimistic about it? Maybe a little bit pessimistic? What are your honest thoughts from a company and a consulting perspective?
You go, Abigail. I'll go next.
You've got to be optimistic to get out of bed in the morning. But I guess one of the concerns I have is that, in order to have a circular economy, you need to have a circle. And just from our perspective, our manufacturers really struggle to find tool makers, engineers, die setters to work. And every government since Hawke has promised to bring manufacturing back to Australia and really struggled to do so. And that there are some really sort of unsexy operational changes that just require a lot of hard work and determination to see them through, and not much gain other than doing the right thing that needed. So we need to be guided by principle and not by fiscal policy in a lot of what needs to be done.
Ashleigh?
Actually, I would share the sentiment that Abigail has there on you need to be optimistic, and I think there is a lot of great progress, as Jodie's particularly mentioned, happening in Australia at the moment. However, I think, and it's been touched on as well, that we are often taking the circular economy down to its lowest common denominator, which is around waste and recycling. And the intent of the model and the opportunity is so much greater for us as an entire economy, not only here in Australia, but globally. But I'm very optimistic in a sense that, as an organisation and alongside my panellists, we are working with some of the country's biggest corporations that are going to change projects, that change the face of our cities, how we interact with infrastructure. BHP, Rio Tinto, Lendlease, Mirvac, Frasers, these are big players that are actively investing in and transitioning toward a circular economy. And we're going to see the fruition of those intentions and investments very shortly, and I'm very proud and optimistic about that.
Final question, I'll end with you, Jan. What do you think are the areas of greatest opportunity for circular economy in Australia?
It starts actually with what I think I can listen to everyone here. It's about cooperation and coming together. And that's what I mean is truly to do that. And that is, not to think like, okay, in different industry segments or categories at the competition. Let's put that aside, because what we have in front of us is an opportunity and the most important task to create a better everyday life for ourselves here in Australia. And the only way is together forward. So we need to kind of drop the corner flags and get in there and roll up the sleeves and actually then saying, these are the goals, these are what we're going to go after. We might not have all of the answers, but we are optimistic about the future, not getting stopped by this is impossible and so on, but more to get the energy from there. And that journey can only be done all across communities, people, industries, government, state, federal level.
And the ACE Hub is the perfect place to go, where we bring together all these areas of industry, government, academia, consultants. So it's the perfect place to start for those watching and in the room today. I just want to say a huge thank you to our incredible panellists, Ashleigh, Abigail, Scott, Jan, Jodie and Nick. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, before we wrap things up, I just want to go back to our first question to see if your perspectives may have changed after listening to some of our panellists. So I'm going to ask you once again, if you could describe the circular economy in one word, what would that be? So I'll just wait until those details are on the screen for you. And if you can answer that question, it'll be interesting to see if anything has changed. Now, we're going to be sharing links to the recording of this event and also to Jacqueline Cramer's ebook, How Network Governments Powers the Circular Economy. Officially, this book isn't available until the 1st of December, so you've all got a little bit of an exclusive and a heads up on that. And we know that the great people over at Fifth Estate also have a circular economy event today, so hopefully you can continue your circular day with them. And for those of you watching online, you will see some follow-up questions that we'd love your responses to. They will help us to determine the most effective ways to share knowledge with you and inspire further action. Now, as you know, today's event wouldn't have been possible without the support of our funding partners, our sponsors and collaborators. A huge thanks to you all. And finally, I'd like to encourage everyone to head to the newly launched website acehub.org.au and subscribe so you can be a part of this great collaboration effort. To everyone online, thank you for joining us. To everybody in the room, thank you for joining us. And the final last round of applause for our speakers and panellists who made today's event a success. Thank you. You are all free.